What really happens when fame, fortune, and power are tied to heartbreak? The Kennedy family wasn't just rich and famous. They were American royalty, a family that gave the world presidents, senators, heroes, and activists. From the outside, they seemed perfect. But behind the photos, the power, and the public spotlight, crashing planes, public assassinations, strange accidents, and deep, aching heartbreaks never left them. At some point, people stopped believing it was just bad luck. But then the question started, was this really a curse? It all begins with Patrick Kennedy, who left famine-struck Ireland in 1849 and sailed to Boston with nothing but hope. With barely a coin to his name, he worked the docks and lived in the slums. Eventually, he died of tuberculosis at just 35, leaving behind a wife and 5 children. His widow, Bridget Murphy, though, didn't crumble. She stood tall. She opened a tiny store and worked hard enough to buy more, eventually owning liquor and grocery shops. Her strength set the tone for what the Kennedys would become. Her son, P.J. Kennedy, followed in her footsteps, buying saloons, investing in whiskey imports, and entering politics. Then came Joseph P. Kennedy Sr., the man who dreamed bigger than anyone before him. A shrewd investor, he dodged the 1929 stock market crash, made a fortune in Hollywood, and allegedly had ties to bootlegging during Prohibition. But Joseph didn't just want wealth, he wanted power. And he wanted it for his children. He married Rose Fitzgerald, daughter of Boston's mayor, and together they had 9 children. From the start, Joseph believed he had to build a family legacy unlike any other. And he was right. But he never could have predicted the cost. Not all the Kennedy children were meant for politics. Their oldest daughter, Rosemary, was different. During birth, sadly, oxygen got cut off to her brain and left her with lifelong developmental issues. As she got older, Rosemary became harder to handle. Her father, desperate to fix things, agreed to a risky surgery, a lobotomy. But it went terribly wrong. Rosemary lost nearly all ability to speak or walk. She was hidden away in an institution, cut off from the world. Her father never visited her again. Even her siblings didn't know what had happened to her until decades later. It was the family's first real tragedy, and the first chilling sign of what was to come. Joseph Kennedy Sr. had placed all his hopes in his oldest son, Joe Jr., to become the first Catholic president of the United States. He went to Harvard, joined the Navy, and flew dangerous missions during World War II. But one mission changed everything. While flying a secret operation over the English Channel, Joe Jr.'s plane exploded midair. His body was never found. He was only 29. The Kennedy dream even didn't die that day. It shifted. Now, all eyes were on John F. Kennedy, the second son, who'd already proven himself as a war hero after saving his crew in the South Pacific. Though battling chronic illness, he entered politics, won a Pulitzer Prize, married Jacqueline Bouvier, and in 1961 became President of the United States. Jack and Jackie were everything America wanted, youthful, filled with hope. But behind the perfect pictures were losses the public didn't see. A miscarriage, a stillborn daughter named Arabella, and a son, Patrick, who died just 2 days after birth. Then came Dallas, November 22, 1963. While riding in a motorcade through Dallas, a shot rang out, then another. Jack slumped over. Jackie, dressed in a pink suit stained with blood, cradled her husband's head screaming, and chaos exploded. The young president was gone. In the years that followed, it was Robert F. Kennedy, Bobby, who took up his brother's torch. He had served as JFK's Attorney General, had helped defuse the Cuban Missile Crisis, and was an advocate for civil rights and poverty reform. In 1968, while campaigning for president, Bobby won the California primary. As he walked through the kitchen of the Ambassador Hotel, a 24-year-old man named Sirhan Sirhan pulled out a gun and shot him. In that moment, the world watched, breathless. Bobby died the next day, leaving behind a pregnant wife and 10 children. His 11th child, Rory, would never meet her father. The tragedies that haunted the Kennedy family didn't stop at politics. Kathleen Kennedy, full of life, laughter, and rebellion, fell in love with British aristocrat William Cavendish. They married, but only weeks later, William was killed in combat during World War II. She was heartbroken, but she tried to love again. Years later, Kathleen died in a plane crash with her new fiancé, She was just 28 years old and the only Kennedy child buried far from the rest of the family, in England, beside the man she loved. With the deaths of Joe Jr., Jack, and Bobby, the pressure now fell on the youngest Kennedy son, Edward, called Ted. He served nearly 50 years in the U.S. Senate, fought for healthcare reform, and became a respected voice in politics. But his journey, too, was shadowed by tragedy. In 1964, Ted's plane crashed, killing 2 others and leaving him with a broken back. He survived, but his most haunting moment came 5 years later. In 1969, after leaving a party on Chappaquiddick Island, Ted drove off a bridge. His passenger, 28-year-old Mary Jo Kopechne, was trapped inside and drowned. Ted didn't report the accident until the next day. Though he escaped legal punishment, the scandal destroyed his presidential hopes. He never fully recovered from that night. Even so, he continued serving. He passed over 300 bills and fought hard for the people he represented. But the grief didn't stop. His daughter, Kara, died of a heart attack at 51. His son, Edward Jr., battled cancer and lost a leg when he was just 12. Ted knew what it meant to carry on. He had been doing it his whole life. John F. Kennedy Jr. was born just weeks after his father was elected president. At age 3, he famously saluted his father's coffin. That photo became history. He was called John Jr. by the press and grew up as American royalty. As he grew older, the world never stopped watching. John Jr. founded a magazine, dated Hollywood stars, and finally settled down with Carolyn Bessette, a graceful, elegant woman who hated the media attention. In 1999, John piloted his own plane to a Kennedy family wedding in Massachusetts. Carolyn and her sister Lauren were with him. The sky was foggy, the conditions weren't safe, and John wasn't certified to fly in that kind of weather. Somewhere over the Atlantic, the plane crashed. Days later, divers found the wreckage on the ocean floor. All 3 bodies were recovered. John was 38. The boy who once stood by his father's grave was now being mourned in the same way. The curse, if that's what it is, has not left the Kennedy name. Even the next generations have felt its grip. Caroline Kennedy, JFK's only surviving child, has kept her family's spirit alive. She became a lawyer, an author, and later a diplomat, serving as ambassador to Japan and Australia. But even she hasn't escaped the quiet ache that shadows her family. The Kennedy name continues to echo in the news, but far too often, it's because of yet another loss. In 2020, Robert Kennedy Jr., daughter Maeve drowned with her 8-year-old son during a canoeing accident in 2020. The canoe was swept out by strong currents in the Chesapeake Bay. Not long before that, Saoirse Kennedy Hill, another young granddaughter, died from a drug overdose. Back in 1997, Michael Kennedy died in a skiing accident. And years earlier, in 1984, another son, David Kennedy, lost his life to a drug overdose. Even family members by marriage have felt the weight of the Kennedy family curse. The curse has touched nearly everyone. So, what do we make of all of this? Is the Kennedy curse just a myth born out of a large, high-profile family that lived public and risky lives? Or is it something else? Something darker? Maybe it's just the numbers. A large, high-profile family with a history of risk-taking, public service, and flying too close to the sun. They sailed into storms, flew planes, challenged the powerful, and lived life out loud. But still, the tragedies pile up. Too many, too young, too sudden. But maybe, just maybe, the curse is real. And yet, through all of it, the Kennedys had success. The name still carries weight. Their story is stitched into the very fabric of American history. And in the end, what we remember most is not just the legacy, it's the people. Do you believe in the Kennedy curse? Or do you see it as the tragic cost of success and visibility? Leave your thoughts in the comments.